Have you ever looked at a painting and wondered what it's like to set foot inside of one? What would it be like to enter the borders of a piece of art which compels you to admire it? Some time ago, I spent hours trying to get my Fallout games to run. I tried community patches, clean installs, the works, but was unable to run those games for more than a minute before crashing, or more than past the main menu before crashing. I especially wanted so badly to play Fallout 4 with one of my favorite mods. I sat there defeated, feeling what I'd describe as a sense of longing. Longing for what, exactly? The moment I began to pull myself away, the siren song of what was left of the Commonwealth began to wane, and instead crossfade into different soundscapes of other worlds to visit. Other worlds that would not tease me with the illusion of functioning only to immediately crash. I sat there asking myself why I longed to return to the most random games in my catalog, outside of a reason as simple as to feel nostalgic. Some of them were for the story, others were for plain and simple fun, and others, like with Fallout, were for the compelling worlds that they portray. Sometime later, and a few more games in between, one of my best friends recommended that I play Ghost of Tsushima. It wasn't until then that I realized in this game, and even the games I've played before, I was more regularly pausing my journey to just admire the art, direction, style, and beauty of each story or sandbox I add to my catalog of finally played games. No matter the setting, no matter the gameplay type, I find myself either living, playing, or simply touring throughout these worlds, just with more awareness or sentience than I had growing up. I went from beating a new game that was bought for me within 2 to 3 days to actually soaking in the environment and replaying it, even if I did finish it. Now, what is it about these video games that compels us to digest the different experiences which they present to us? Some of us might say the reason is to explore a tailored experience. Others use these games as islands of respite and escape. Nearly all of us may say that, simply put, video games are fun to play. But if you truly take the time to analyze and explore each game, they more clearly reveal themselves as expansive pieces of art beyond the confines of the 16:9 frame upon which they are painted. Even those deep moving pictures, which I didn't find much enjoyment from, have still earned as much respect as I'd give to others, solely based on the art direction. Some of the games that lack a tangible visual aspect, or are not normally considered as compelling to view, instead make up for their visuals by taking a more book-adjacent approach. As for gameplay, those games might also compensate by taking notes from more conventionally visualized games through testing your ability to create, your want to escape, and your ability to persist in a world of decay, hatred, or isolation. Depending on the game, one might compare the experience to a theme park setting for walking around and enjoying the rides presented. Others might see a game as an empty canvas waiting to be filled with purposeful smears of charcoal or intricate strokes of acrylic and oil. And still others might steer into the direction of believing games are self-guided tours exploring the major points of a compelling saga. or, in short, a movie. Regardless of what a video game might mean to you, every genre has a distinct art direction that helps shape the world you're allowed to explore. There exist many pieces of art from the abstract to the grounded. And with any type of digital or physical media, someone will often be there to say that art imitates life. Video games have the potential to share such a ubiquitous statement. Originally, I was going to focus on the more fantastical worlds found in gaming, those that aren't relatively grounded or based in modernity, but after giving that direction some thought, I realized that that would be rather ignorant to the effort that people put into designing a world on feudal Japan's windy Tsushima Island, or Red Dead's verdant western frontier. It would be likened to that of dismissing the illustrations of artists like Rockwell or Stephen Bliss, exclusively for Hokusai's or Van Gogh's style of visual structure. What really helped change my mind was one of my best friends saying that video games, which focus on storytelling, like Red Dead or God of War, can be likened to that of a form of interactive cinema, with the only difference being that you can spend as long as you want within these worlds, as opposed to the typical 2 to 3 hour runtime of a modern film. Now, movies filmed with minimal CGI or special effects can still hold the same amount of visual significance as one made exclusively with hand-drawn or keyframed animations. I would even say a video game set in a tangible world has the potential to elevate the aspects of nature, concrete, or even a small country in a way that is more accessible to most people. There is a beauty in walks through ecological preserves and an introspective admiration for our hobbies as a species that can still be appreciated when put to canvas, paper, or pixels. Another point to be made in favor of the artistry of these realistic worlds would be to include any important or notable aspects of culture depending on the context or the setting. A good example would be the considerate inclusion of not just a rich portrayal of cultural icons of the Japanese religion, but also various Mongolian artifacts with small history lessons hinting at what the Mongol peoples were like around the feudal era of Japan's history. For being portrayed as the antagonist faction within the setting of this beautiful game, it is important to remember that these people, as with any you may consider an opposing force, are just that, a people with a lively culture, despite any wrong or right doing. While we're still grounded in realism, we must remember those pieces of art which critique the very foundation on which they're molded. Some artists' compositions have been made, and are still made today, to double as a simple piece to admire, as well as a design to enunciate a statement, political or otherwise, regarding a subject they personally take interest in. A very popular example of political art people might think of would be some of Banksy's works of art, but sometimes a game doesn't need to have as much nuance that some spray paint and cardboard can create. Take Ready or Not, for example. Sure, it's just a game, and the events represented are fictional, but the subjects included within are real. Children are abducted. People are exploited. The unfortunate are left behind, and extremists exist to spread a message at the expense of the innocent.
Let me see those hands!
I'm a very sheltered guy who hasn't had the misfortune of witnessing first or second hand the horrors of some of the situations that the LSPD SWAT team have to face. I do see some headlines and news stories about subjects that are similar to what we see in Ready or Not, but once they're off screen, it's almost as if they were never there to begin with. Playing the game changes that by giving a player a sort of watered down yet still real enough experience to consider the reality of those situations. The game is a scary and uncomfortable work of art, and I admire its inclusion of subject matter that is honestly quite disturbing. Overall, there is an inherent beauty in imitating the land on which we live to virtually play in, be it modern, futuristic, or set in the distant past. Of course, with the time period and setting taking place within the context of a video game, the rules, physics, and history of our reality are allowed to blend and evolve into a different yet still very coherent picture. Alternate realities, parallel timelines, thought experiments. These subjects allow developers to start creating worlds that become a bit more fantastical and stylized, rather than staying mostly in tandem with our world's historical events and real locations. When creating a piece of art, there's plenty of potential to integrate otherworldly subjects into homeworldly settings, such as what we see with the art pieces of Simon Stalenhag, among other artists. Sometimes we can take a certain aspect of life and use it as a point of focus to elevate the laurels of storytelling which rest upon the head of world creation. In simpler terms, developers can add a simple variable to the complex equation of life as we know it and extrapolate on the result to create the world. Take one of my favorites, Fallout, for example. In this universe, up until the 40s to 60s, Fallout shares the same world history that we have learned in our high school years. The Great Wars happened, the atomic bombs were dropped on the people of Japan, but atomic energy started to become a commodity, leading to a new renaissance of technologies that drastically branched off from our version of innovation. Up until the Third Great War kicked off, which culminated in the destruction of the United Commonwealths of America in 2077 over the global energy crisis. Most of the nation had a focus on small atomic or nuclear-powered analog technologies, with the most everyday digital technologies being developed by a few specialist companies like Rodco. On top of the inverse focus on technologies, our version of retro aesthetic has become the most popular form of product design, leading to a distinct world of retrofuturism that includes atomic robots, fusion-powered military armor, and nuclear cars, which share the same rounded and retro pop art look with the basic items like grayscale tube TVs and boxes of pre-packaged foods. Form over function. On the other end of the spectrum, we have the city of Mirror's Edge standing tall as a runner's paradise in a cleanly constructed utopia, with the reds of runner's vision clashing against the whites and blues of buildings like strokes of paint against canvas. Yet, at a certain point, these subjects and settings of games may become too fantastical to feasibly exist within our reality. Sure, Mirror's Edge doesn't seem too far out of left field as a concept, but a functional city like this can't feasibly exist in our world full of variables. These works are often set in different worlds that all look most like ours, but by bending the rules of reality, a development team is able to present a more distinguished style of world building, whether that be fun spins on dystopian futures of corporate oppression, or escapist fantasies born of magic and music. We are typically limited by either the laws of physics or the amount of money it would take to construct such a distinguished concept of cities, weapons, you name it. Once we loosen these restrictive threads, however, the imagination begins to reign supreme in the design or art direction of our fantastic creations. Game developers have for a long time ignored some of these rules to create some of the most memorable worlds I could ever hope to have the privilege of living and exploring within. No longer are we talking about cities and countries based entirely on our reality. Now we bear witness to the worlds brought to life through the concept of the collective efforts of a revolutionary energy and robotics company, through a man who chose to make his vision a reality, or a dying hostile world teeming with life that desperately hides from the rain. In the case of rain, I could personally die happy living underneath it. Growing up in Southern California, I could probably count the amount of times I've witnessed or experienced a shower from the sky that washed away the dirt and ash of the mountains and streets using more than a few inches every few months, if we're lucky. There are games out there that do share my love for and appreciation for the rain, but the most memorable ones I've played take that feeling of relief and toss it into the other end of the spectrum of emotion: fear. In the case of Rain World, picture a place so far developed into the future that massive structures of decrepit pipework and machinery are the very foundation on which life flourishes on. Complex organisms almost purpose-built for an interconnected and balanced ecosystem reign supreme in this world that doesn't give off the impression that it could support the most basic forms of life. Yet they all persist, ceaselessly hostile and hunting eternally for food, until it rains. It doesn't just pour, it's worse than the rain you'd see flooding the Pacific Islands near the continent of Asia or the streets of Louisiana during and after a hurricane. Not to discount the plights of those people. The rain here is literally biblical in its destructive potential against the creatures of this world, so much so that every being can sense when it comes. Every creature immediately ends their cycle, not even stopping for prey that may be easily snatched along the way to seek shelter. Everything hides for fear of being washed away so terribly that it seems to deconstruct the very makeup of the world around any creature caught within it, only to re-emerge an indeterminate time later from hibernation to start the cycle once more, like clockwork. Rain in these games is as much an omen as a catalyst for a video game's art direction. Death Stranding's take on the rain is less violent? Less predictable? It's hard to compare, really. Rain in this world still has the potential to be nothing more than a gentle shower, until it touches your skin. Like the last mentioned game, every living thing makes an attempt to stay out of the rain, lest they become soaked in each drop of a solution which rapidly ages that which it touches. Rusting material, thinning skin, and passing seasons within minutes. The worst of it, however, is not even that. Do you believe in ghosts? Ghosts always arrive with the omen of this rain. Hungry, lonely ghosts. People in this world must remain connected so thoroughly as to allow each other to cremate any human remains and prevent one another from being caught within the clutches of those who have failed to pass into an afterlife, since failure to do that means, well, both of these worlds are set in some future or distant world of sorts, but what if we go back? Back to a time when the Second World War was making its way into textbooks, and the Cold War was still some way out until reaching its warming point. The deep sea can surely be seen as another world within our planet. Such an environment is immeasurably hostile to the likes of us. Yet, life persists. No, thrives on the decay from near the surface of the sea. This hostility to one man is the perfect foundation to hide an entire city from the clutches of any world powers that be at the time. A man who fled the USSR to the US, only to remain just as unhappy there as in his homeland. A city built without gods, built without kings, built only by and for man. Andrei Ryanovsky, anglicized as Andrew Ryan now, chose to build a city using the wealth he had amassed from his exploits in America, with more concern regarding form over function. Imagine if we took the Art Deco style of the US and just put it underwater. Massive and beautiful structures submerged underneath the raging Atlantic waters, connected by underwater rail and walkways, and inhabited by the most lavishly prestigious people throughout the world. What went so wrong leading up to the new year of 1959? Playing through BioShock 1 and 2, we're late to the party of Rapture's complex social systems, but just in time for the atom-filled after-party of genetic modification, allowing humans to seemingly become super, at the cost of disfigurement and insanity stemming from addiction for the stuff. Adam, of course, being a limited resource that must be recycled by children infected by the source of this material, who are also protected by their nightmarishly repurposed maintenance workers of the city under the sea. This beautiful city is a failure on all accounts, and will be lost like the paralleled city of Atlantis. Maybe some of these examples prove to be too bleak, but there are plenty more which breathe a colorful flame of formidable joy and hope, like one of my favorite games. This game is a straight juxtaposition to some of my favorite environments to explore, being in that it's full of the most amount of color and movement I've ever witnessed in a video game to date. Set only on a prestigious company's campus, it's a straight-up utopia of robotics and machinery, which has the potential to give hope and allow prosperity to the people who apply for help from them. This world isn't all about the visuals, as sound design and music serve as an integral part to the journey we progress through. In the process of our main character getting a new robot arm, a slight accident occurs, causing him to see the world through a danceable rhythm of music. Every robot, every piece of tech, even his footsteps are basically part of an expertly choreographed show, hard baked into the gameplay, which basically is a canvas for the world within Hi-Fi Rush. Everything in this game, soundtrack included, exudes an explosive personality that almost demands that you dance and have fun, being an integral part of this story. Trust me, it's easier to play this game if you're dancing along with it. Here in these digital spaces, we've taken the limits of our world and broken them in a way to do more than simply elevate them. Just think of a game, and it's most likely set somewhere exhilaratingly compelling. We can't, however, discount the concept and key arts of designing the assets and environments of any video game. When beginning to develop a video game, artists are often given a prompt and free rein to churn out design after design, to iterate on and reiterate from, with or without design inspirations. This is one of the most important steps to take in development in order to help construct a story and the atmosphere of it. While looking at notes and thinking of the concept and key art of BioShock, for example, we can start to see a vague semblance of what the inhabitants and reverse aquarium environments of Rapture are to look like. Of course, not every piece of art might have made it into the final release of BioShock, but every piece was immeasurably invaluable for the creation of Neptune's Bounty, spider splicers, bouncers, storefronts, plasmids, every single thing outside of the game and in. This is all to say that video games are the most important pieces of art I have ever witnessed in my life. These publications have served as museums, preserves, books, and even music albums to regularly revisit and admire. My love for living immersed within the game truly started with Halo, and is repeatedly stoked to stay ignited with each new game I play. What are some of your favorite digital places to visit? Which game holds your favorite art style, world design, or even soundtrack? Thank you for watching.